I stood on the scaffold, dressed in a white death shirt. There were hundreds of prying eyes around me, and the barrels of the firing squad's guns in front of me. There was a complete emptiness in my head. I felt neither fear nor despair. There was only a feeling of unreality, as in a prolonged nightmare. My heart was beating somewhere in the distance, as if I had fallen out of my own body. Suddenly, scraps from the gospel flashed into my mind. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but of those who cannot kill the soul. Yes, only the body will be killed now, but the soul. Where will my soul go when the volley is fired? In a moment, the sentence will be carried out. It's ironic, just a moment away from eternity. How insignificant is the price of life in the scale of the eternal. But I could have accomplished so much in that one moment. To comprehend, to love, to accomplish, to realize. No, I don't want to die now. Just give me one more chance, just one more. And in that moment, when the breakaway command sounded, and I was overwhelmed with amazement and boundless gratitude, I felt that I was born again. Time stopped for me, and then ran with unprecedented speed. I realized that every moment of this new life had been given to me for a reason, and that I had to find that higher truth for which it was worth living. The topic of idiot is quite multifaceted and reveals various aspects of human nature. In the classical understanding, an idiot means a person with limited mental abilities. However, in fact, this concept is much deeper. The famous Russian writer Fyodor Dostoevsky, in his novel The Idiot, shows his main character, Prince Myshkin, as a positive image of an idiot, a person pure, kind, devoid of hypocrisy and selfishness. Myshkin becomes a stranger in a sick and cruel world, not adapted to the realities of the reality around him. Here we see a completely different view of the idiot, not as a limited person, but as one whose kindness, openness, and spontaneity do not fit into the rigid framework of generally accepted norms. And in this respect, society with its hypocrisy and selfishness looks much more idiotic. Jean-Jacques Rousseau's philosophy of the natural man is interesting in this context. One who has preserved his original natural purity, not corrupted by civilization. This natural idiot is also alien to the vices of society, its norms and values. One can draw parallels with the fools, strange people who with their behavior as if mocked the sinfulness and deceitfulness of the world. They were considered madmen, but behind the external madness there was a deep inner truth. Yes, an idiot in the broad sense is someone who goes his own special way, not fitting into the generally accepted framework. And is this a manifestation of limitation, or, on the contrary, of profound wisdom? The novel The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky is one of the greatest works of world literature. The plot and key moments of this grandiose canvas reveal complex philosophical questions and the depths of the human soul. The main character of the novel, Prince Myshkin, returns to Russia after treatment for epilepsy in Switzerland. He is an extraordinary man who knows no lies, selfishness, and base instincts, possessing childlike spontaneity and purity of soul. His collision with the vulgar and cynical reality of the society of the 19th century and forms the basis of the novel. One of the central plot moves is the love triangle of Prince Myshkin, Nastasia Filipovna, and Rogojin. Their relationship intertwines the whole complex of philosophical, moral, and psychological ideas of the novel. The climax is Nastasia Filipovna's choice between Myshkin and Rogojin, and her departure with Rogojin. The final denouement, Rogojin kills Nastasia Filipovna in a fit of jealousy. Myshkin goes mad after this. Myshkin, as a man of the highest truth and purity, is powerless before the base instincts and viciousness of those around him. The finale is tragic, but glows with the high ideal of the hero, in whose madness lies a deep philosophical meaning. What conclusions can be drawn by analyzing the fate of Prince Myshkin and this complex world woven of contradictions? What is true wisdom? Foolishness in the face of society's cynicism, or madness as a different comprehension of existence? In 1849, the writer was arrested and sentenced to death for participation in the Petrashevsky Circle. The sentence was replaced by hard labor at the last moment. But the execution procedure was staged. Dostoevsky was taken to the scaffold, put on a white shirt of the death row, and at the last moment announced the replacement of the firing squad by hard labor. This event deeply shook the writer and radically changed his worldview. At hard labor, Dostoevsky rethought the value of human life, the role of suffering in understanding the truth. Later, he wrote that on the scaffold, he was opened a whole new horizon of perception of life. These ideas formed the basis of his conceived image of a positively beautiful man, Prince Myshkin. Thus, the traumatic experience of his own approach to death became the impetus for the creation of one of Dostoevsky's most significant and profound works, the novel The Idiot, where he brought out the idea of moral transformation through suffering. I have a special destiny. In early childhood, I was nearly rendered insane because of a terrible disease, my dark affliction, as my father called epilepsy. Many years spent in Swiss clinics, where I was looking for salvation from fits of madness. And finally, the doctors informed me that I was completely cured and could return to Russia. With what excitement and trepidation I met my homeland. I wanted to embrace every corner here to hear my native speech. After all, I had been away for 5 years, longing for home. However, the more I looked at the faces of those around me, the more I realized that I was like an alien among these people. Their eyes glittered with coldness, and their smiles were full of falsity. Was 5 years really a gap separating me from my compatriots? Abroad, everyone was so simple and friendly with me. But here, it was as if my spontaneity caused only ridicule and dislike. Sometimes it seems to me it was better to stay there, in quiet Switzerland, under the blue peaks of the mountains. But I believe God must have sent me these trials for a reason. After all, evil cannot be defeated by evil, and I am not discouraged, trying to bring people the light of kindness by which I myself was saved. I believe that my madness will turn into higher reason, and for now, I go with firm faith in my soul to meet my mysterious fate. The idea of Superman and the image of positively beautiful man, Prince Myshkin, are closely intertwined in Dostoevsky's work, complementing each other. Dostoevsky's concept of the Superman is very different from Nietzsche's ideas. While Nietzsche sees in the Superman the embodiment of the will to power, Dostoevsky sees him as the bearer of the highest truth and Christ's love for people. The image of Prince Myshkin in the novel The Idiot carries the features of this Superman according to Dostoevsky, a Christ-like figure speaking with the highest moral ideal. However, the paradox is that the beautiful-hearted Myshkin, while striving to bring people the highest truth, is himself a victim of the evil and vulgarity of the world. His idealism cannot withstand the collision with the spiritless reality. And here we see a deep dialectic. Myshkin, as the embodiment of the highest wisdom, paradoxically appears in the novel as an idiot, and his tragic fate emphasizes the idea of the impossibility of harmonious coexistence between the superhuman and the fallen world. Thus, Dostoevsky shows the two sides of superhumanity, the triumph of the spirit and the tragedy of loneliness, the wisdom of madness and powerlessness before the chaos of existence. The image of Forrest Gump from the movie Forrest Gump as best as possible corresponds to Dostoevsky's ideas about the idiot. In the features of this hero, we see a very special character combined with the tragedy of fate. Both Forrest Gump and Prince Myshkin, both protagonists, are characterized by childlike directness and purity of thought. They are simple-minded, alien to selfishness, ready for self-sacrifice for the sake of loved ones, and true to their moral principles. At the same time, both Myshkin and Forrest are unsuited to the cruel world. They have no place among the hypocrisy and vulgarity of others. The images of these natural people, who have preserved their original purity, are the embodiment of sublime good-natured idiocy, which Dostoevsky contrasts with the vices of society. These heroes remain themselves, despite the misunderstanding of others, and this is their great spirit. Dostoevsky's idiots are alien to calculation, self-interest, greed. They retain a childlike purity of soul, sincerity, and spontaneity, and at the same time demonstrate an ascetic love for people, willingness to self-sacrifice. Thus, idiocy is a form of enlightened consciousness in a spiritless world. At the same time, being a pure soul, the idiot is doomed to the tragedy of misunderstanding, ridicule, and sometimes hatred of others. Dostoevsky's philosophy of idiocy asserts the highest moral ideal in a world devoid of ideals, and at the same time tragically emphasizes the impossibility of harmonious coexistence of this bright beginning and sinful human environment. This is how the image of the blessed sufferer is born. To identify the idiot in Dostoevsky's understanding with the slave would be fundamentally wrong. These figures belong to completely different planes of human existence. The slave is a man deprived of freedom and dignity, reduced to the position of a talking tool. His will is broken, he is forced to obey his master unconditionally. Idiot, in Dostoevsky's understanding, Prince Myshkin, is a being internally free and enlightened, even if the external circumstances are tragic, but his spirit is unbroken. Moreover, the idiot is capable of compassion and sacrifice himself for the sake of others. This is an ascetic of love and higher truth. He can in no way be likened to a battered slave, devoid of any greatness. The only paradox is that the purity of the idiot's thoughts does not allow him to survive in a fallen world. But even in the face of tragedy, he retains the human greatness of an ascetic of spirit. Such is Dostoevsky's philosophy of idiocy. Let's imagine a hypothetical situation. What if all people shared the worldview of idiots in the spirit of Prince Myshkin? Would this mean the triumph of goodness in the world? Or would such a society simply not be able to survive? On the one hand, the realm of forgiving love, compassion, and purity of thought looks like a very attractive utopia. People would stop lying, betraying, being jealous, hating. But on the other hand, idiots are hardly capable of building a viable civilization. They lack practicality, rationality, pragmatism. Perhaps, under conditions of struggle for resources, such a society would simply die out. So, most likely, the idiocy of Myshkin and other righteous men like him is a dream, an attempt to recreate paradise on earth, at least locally, in response to the imperfections of the world. But such a model cannot be a universal way of life due to its unlivability. Society is also not ready to accept the naturalness and special view of the world of these people. Behind the mask of a good-natured fool, they still do not see an equivalent person. And under the guise of pity or help, there is a rejection of their otherness. Paradoxically, a century later, we are in many ways still no closer to understanding the philosophy of idiocy established by Dostoevsky. Although, of course, attempts are being made to better integrate such people into society. What do you think? What needs to change first of all, so that the view of idiots becomes different? Who considers the criteria of normality in society? Where is the line between idiocy and insanity? What is the difference between a blissful idiot and a battered sick person? Who has the right to label someone as disabled or retarded? Is not hatred often hidden under the guise of pity? Is the desire to help the realization of one's superiority? Isn't aggression toward the inferior born out of an evil sense of inferiority? Why do most people label a person in advance on their idiot classifiers without looking into his soul? Doesn't he deserve a chance for acceptance? Are we able to see behind the mask of fool a generous and pure person? Questions, questions. It seems that for a long time the discord of mind and heart will last, and everyone must decide for himself who to call by this strange name, idiot.